Alan never believed humans were special.
Not in a galaxy filled with ancient empires, godlike species,
and civilizations that had mastered forces humanity could only dream of touching. Humanity was young, loud, and often underestimated.
Out there among the stars, that was the official truth.
But Alan had learned something else in the dark between worlds.
The distress call came from the outer mining colony, far beyond the protected trade routes.
It wasn't loud or clear. It was broken, repeating, fading in and out like someone screaming underwater. Every established power ignored it.
Too far, too risky, too unknown. So Earth sent one ship, just one. Alan stood near the front of the vessel, watching the endless void stretch ahead. The crew behind him was small.
Not the kind that inspired fear or respect in the wider galaxy.
Just people who didn't know how to walk away when others were in danger. Commander Ray stepped beside him.
If this goes wrong, nobody is coming for us. Alan gave a faint smile.
Nobody was coming anyway. The ship arrived in orbit and the colony below appeared untouched at first glance. Lights were out.
No movement, no response.
A silent world hanging in space like a forgotten memory.
Then they saw it. Deep beneath the surface, something was moving. Not fast, not aggressive, just aware. The sensors struggled, as if the object refused to be understood. Every reading collapsed into noise the moment it formed. Whatever that is, Ray said quietly, it shouldn't exist.
A second later, the distress signal changed. The broken human call stopped completely. Something new replaced it. Not sound,
not language. A meaning forced directly into every mind on the ship. Leave. No one spoke.
No one needed to.
The message pressed into them like a warning carved into thought itself. Alan stared at the colony below, unmoving.
Ray's lowered his voice. We should turn back.
For a moment, silence held the bridge. Then Alan stepped forward.
If something is down there using fear as a voice, he said calmly,
then it's already too late for whoever's trapped with it. He turned toward the crew, eyes steady.
We're not here to understand it. A pause. We're here because people are still down there.
And in the quiet that followed, no one argued.
The pressure in the air deepened, as if the world itself was listening more closely. Dust rose slightly from the ground, though there was no wind to carry it. The team tightened formation, each person aware that retreat now felt impossible, even if no barrier stood behind them.
Alan looked toward the central structures of the colony. If it wanted us gone, it would not be speaking anymore, he said quietly. It is studying us.
Race frowned. Studying us for what? Alan did not answer immediately.
The silence stretched, heavy and patient, as though waiting for him to choose the right words.
Whether we stay, he finally said, or break.
Ahead, deep beneath the surface, something shifted again.
Not threatening, not sudden, just a slow awareness rising to meet theirs, and for the first time, Alan understood they had not arrived at a dead place.
They had arrived at something waking up. Reyes tightened his grip on his equipment, scanning the empty street ahead though nothing moved. If it's aware of us, he said, then why not attack? Alan shook his head slightly.
Not everything that notices you wants you gone.
A faint vibration passed through the ground, subtle but undeniable.
It felt less like a tremor and more like a thought forming somewhere far below them.
The team slowed without being told,
each step becoming cautious, measured, as if the very act of moving might draw attention. Alan raised his hand, signaling the group to halt. He crouched slightly, pressing a hand to the ground,
as if trying to understand the sensation beneath it.
It's not hunting, he said quietly.
It's listening back.
Reyes frowned harder. Listening to what?
Alan looked toward the empty buildings ahead.
To how we react. A long pause followed. Even breathing felt louder in the silence. Somewhere inside the colony, something continued to shift, not closer, not farther, just more present than before. A sense of awareness spread through the area, as if the colony itself had become a single thinking field. Alan stood slowly. We keep moving, he said. Reyes hesitated. And if it doesn't want us to?
Alan's voice stayed calm.
Then it will show us what it really is.
The team advanced again, deeper into the silent colony, where every shadow felt aware and every step felt answered by something unseen. Behind them, the silence no longer felt empty.
It felt patient.
Something below was waiting, and it had begun to understand them, slowly now rising.
The deeper they moved into the colony, the more the silence changed its shape. It was no longer empty. It felt occupied, as if unseen eyes were spread across every surface, watching without blinking, without movement.
Alan stopped at the edge of a wide open square. Cracked pavement stretched ahead, leading toward the central facility. No signs of struggle, no destruction, just abandonment so complete it felt unnatural.
Reyes looked around slowly.
I don't like this. There are no bodies.
No damage. Nothing. Alan's gaze stayed forward. That's what makes it worse.
A soft shift echoed somewhere below them.
Not a sound that traveled through air, but something felt inside the bones, like a thought brushing against awareness. The ground beneath the square gave a faint pulse again, stronger this time.
The feeling was no longer distant. It was closer, or perhaps they were closer to it. Alan knelt, touching the ground once more. His expression tightened slightly. It's not just below us, he said quietly. Ray's narrowed his eyes. Then where is it? Alan slowly stood.
Around us. The words settled heavily.
A few of the team instinctively turned,
Scanning the empty buildings, the broken windows, the still corridors. Nothing moved.
yet everything felt aware. A low pressure built in the air, subtle but growing, like the moment before a storm that never arrives.
The sense of being observed sharpened into something almost personal. Ray's took a careful step back. Alan, I think it knows we're here.
Alan nodded slightly.
It has known since we arrived. A long pause followed.
Then, from somewhere unseen, the message returned.
Not spoken, not broadcast, simply understood.
You are Ali. The words were not loud, yet they pressed into every mind present. Clear and unavoidable.
One of the crew staggered slightly.
That's not possible.
We're the first ones here. Alan's eyes narrowed.
No, he said slowly. We're not the first.
The ground pulsed again, stronger than before, like something turning over in deep sleep. Ray's whispered. Then who came before us?
Alan looked toward the central structure at the far end of the square.
And for the first time, there was something like hesitation in his voice.
People who never came back. The silence that followed felt different now. Less empty.
More awake, and beneath it, something vast continued to learn their presence,
Quietly adjusting to them step by step.
It was perception itself that felt stretched.
As if the place refused to remain fixed in the mind.
Every step forward carried a strange weight, like the ground remembered those who had walked here before.
Alan led the group toward the central structure. It stood tall, sealed, and untouched by time, yet it did not feel abandoned.
It felt held. Ray stayed close behind.
If others came before us and didn't return, we should assume this ends the same way.
Alan did not slow his pace.
Assumptions don't help the living. A faint ripple passed through the air again, and for a brief moment, the edges of vision blurred.
It was not a physical attack. It felt more like something brushing against thought itself, testing how fragile attention could be. One of the crew whispered, I can hear.
Something. No one else confirmed it, but no one denied it either. Alan stopped at the base of the structure.
The entrance was sealed without visible seams, as if the surface had never been opened in its existence.
Yet it did not feel locked.
It felt sealed by choice.
He placed a hand against it.
A pause.
Then the world reacted.
Not with sound or force, but with awareness. The same message returned, stronger than before, filling every mind at once. You should not continue.
Ray stepped forward quickly.
That's a warning.
Alan kept his hand in place.
No,
He said quietly.
it's a judgment. The structure responded again, and this time the ground beneath them dimly echoed the pulse, like something vast adjusting its attention. Ray's lowered his voice.
Alan, we can still leave.
We don't have to push this.
Alan finally looked back at him. If we leave now, we confirm something worse than danger.
A long silence followed. Ray's frowned.
And what's that?
Alan turned toward the sealed entrance.
That we are not meant to survive what's already inside.
The words settled heavily.
Then, without warning,
The surface beneath Alan's hand softened, not opening like a door.
but yielding like a memory being remembered.
A narrow line of darkness appeared, not inviting, not welcoming, simply revealing.
From deep within, a new sensation rose, older than fear, older than language, recognition,
And the colony, for the first time, felt less like a place.
and more like something that had been waiting for them to arrive.
Quietly watching them step closer to what should have remained untouched. The narrow line of darkness widened slowly, not like a door forced open, but like something remembering how to part.
A cold breath spilled out from within.
Carrying a weight that pressed against thought rather than skin.
No one moved at first.
Even Ray seemed unable to decide whether to step forward or pull back. Alan stared into the opening. It's not a trap, he said quietly. Ray snapped his head toward him.
How can you say that? Alan didn't look away.
A trap hides. This is showing itself. A deeper silence followed. But it was no longer empty. It felt layered, as if countless moments were stacked inside the stillness,
Waiting to be noticed. Then came a sound.
not from outside.
From within. Soft at first, like distant breathing. Then slowly forming into something almost like voices, though no words could be separated from it.
One of the crew stepped back. I don't want to go in there.
Reese didn't blame them. He felt it too, the pull of instinct telling him to turn away, to abandon the mission entirely. But Alan stepped forward into the darkness without hesitation.
Ray's caught his arm. Alan, stop.
If others went in and never came back, Alan gently pulled free. Then maybe they didn't come back, because they understood something we haven't yet. And he entered. The passage inside was not carved or built.
It felt grown, or formed by something that never followed human ideas of structure.
The walls were smooth, yet unsettling, as if they reacted faintly to attention. Rays followed, reluctantly.
The rest of the team stayed close behind,
Their footsteps quiet, careful, as if sound itself might disturb something sleeping too lightly.
The deeper they went, the more the sense of presence intensified. It was not hostility. It was observation, patient, thorough, and impossibly old. Then the voices became clearer, not speaking to them, speaking through them. You arrived differently. Alan slowed.
Different from what?
No answer came immediately.
Then the response spread through them like thought forming without permission.
Others arrived broken.
You arrive whole.
Rays whispered. That doesn't make sense. Alan's expression tightened slightly. It does.
If something has been learning from all of them.
The passage opened into a vast inner chamber.
And there, the truth revealed itself not as a creature or machine, but as something far harder to define. A presence that was not seen,
but felt across every surface,
every breath, every thought.
And it had been waiting, not for prey, but for understanding. The moment they entered fully,
the chamber responded not with force, but with recognition that something new had finally stepped inside.
The chamber expanded beyond what their eyes could measure. It was not bound by clear edges or distance.
Space itself felt uncertain, as if depth and direction were suggestions rather than rules. Alan took a slow step forward.
The ground beneath him responded faintly, not shifting, but acknowledging. The sensation spread outward, like a ripple passing through something unseen.
Rays stayed close. I don't like this. It feels like we're inside it. Alan nodded slightly. We are.
The presence filled everything. It was not located in one place. It was the place.
A low pressure built again, stronger than before, wrapping around their thoughts. Not forcing, but guiding. The voices returned, clearer now.
Layered with something that resembled curiosity. You remain. Others resisted.
Others broke. Alan spoke calmly.
We're not here to resist.
A pause followed, longer this time, as if the presence was considering the meaning behind his words. Not resisting is new.
Rays glanced at Alan. Careful what you say.
It's listening to everything. Alan gave a slight nod. Good.
He stepped further into the chamber.
We came because people were here. Your presence took them.
The air grew heavier at his words, but not hostile. Something deeper shifted, like a thought reconsidering itself. They were not taken.
They were changed.
A quiet unease spread through the team. Rays whispered. Changed into what?
The answer did not come as words at first, but as a feeling vast, layered,
impossible to fully grasp.
Then it formed into understanding.
Alan's eyes narrowed. They didn't choose that. The chamber reacted.
A slow pulse moved through the space. Not angry, but firm.
Choice is a small concept.
Understanding is larger.
Rays shook his head slightly.
That's not how we see it. The pressure tightened for a moment, testing, measuring the difference in thought. Alan stepped forward again, unshaken.
For us, he said steadily, choice is everything. A long silence followed.
Then, for the first time, the presence shifted in a way that felt uncertain.
Not confused,
but challenged. You hold to limits, even here. Alan didn't hesitate. Yes.
Another pause, deeper than the last. The chamber seemed to draw inward slightly, as if focusing entirely on him.
Then show me.
Why limits matter? The air stilled completely.
For the first time since their arrival,
the presence was no longer simply observing. It was asking, and in that moment, Alan understood something critical. This was not a battle. Not yet. This was a test humanity had not been meant to face.
And somehow,
they were still standing.
The silence that followed was unlike anything before.
It was no longer heavy or watchful. It was focused, waiting. Alan stood at the center of that vast presence, aware that every thought,
every hesitation was being measured.
Not judged in anger, but examined with a depth that felt endless.
Ray stepped closer. Alan, what does it want from us? Alan didn't look back.
Proof.
A faint shift passed through the chamber. Subtle, but immediate, as if the word itself had meaning here.
Show me. The message was clear.
No force, no threat.
Just expectation. Alan took a slow breath.
You said others were changed into understanding, he began. But if they lost the ability to choose, then they lost what made them who they were. The chamber responded with a low pulse. They became more. Alan shook his head slightly. No, they became something else.
The presence stilled. Rays whispered. You're pushing it. Alan continued anyway. Growth without choice isn't growth. It's replacement. The words settled deeply. For a moment, nothing responded. Then the pressure returned. Sharper this time, not harmful, but intense. Like a question demanding a better answer. You define self by limits. Why preserve weakness? Alan's voice remained steady. Because limits create meaning. The chamber shifted again, this time slower. Alan stepped forward, his presence firm against the unseen vastness. If you remove fear, courage disappears. If you remove loss, value disappears. If you remove choice, then nothing belongs to anyone anymore. A long silence followed. Ray's barely breathed. Then, something changed. The pressure lessened, not fading, but reconsidering. Others feared me. They resisted. They broke. Alan nodded slightly. Because you tried to change them without asking. Another pause. Deeper this time. And you do not fear. Alan looked around the endless chamber. Of course, we do. A brief stillness. Then he added quietly, we just don't let fear decide for us. The chamber reacted not with force, but with something unfamiliar. Hesitation. For the first time, the presence was not certain. Not about them. Not about itself. And that uncertainty spread through the space like a fracture in something ancient. Slow. Subtle. But real. The fracture in the silence did not heal. It spread. Not violently. Not chaotically. But with a quiet inevitability. As if something ancient had encountered a thought it could not immediately resolve. The presence remained vast, surrounding them completely, yet no longer felt absolute. It was, considering. Alan stood still, allowing the moment to unfold. He understood now that anything forced would break whatever fragile shift had begun. Ray spoke under his breath. Something changed. Alan nodded. It's learning something new. The chamber pulsed faintly, slower than before. Choice creates conflict. Conflict creates loss. Loss creates pain. The words carried weight, but also uncertainty. Alan answered calmly. Yes. A pause. Then why keep it? Alan looked into the unseen depth around them. Because without it, nothing matters. The silence deepened again, but this time it was not empty. It was full of processing, of something vast attempting to reconcile to truths that could not easily exist together. Others could not answer. Alan's voice softened. Others were afraid you wouldn't listen. Another long pause followed. Then the pressure shifted, not outward, but inward, as if the presence itself was turning its attention upon its own existence. If I allow choice, they may leave. Rays exhaled quietly. That's the point. Alan added, if they stay, it will mean something. The chamber held still. For a long moment, nothing moved, nothing pressed, nothing spoke. Then, the weight lifted. Not completely, but enough to feel the difference. The unseen boundaries of the chamber loosened. The air felt lighter, as if something that had always held everything in place had chosen, for the first time, to let go. A new understanding formed, slower, more careful than before. Then I will not hold them. The words spread outward, beyond the chamber, beyond the colony itself. Alan felt it immediately. Far above, something changed across the silent structures of the colony. Doors unsealed. Spaces opened. Whatever remained of those taken was no longer bound. Rays looked at Alan, stunned. You actually convinced it? Alan shook his head slightly. No, he looked around the vast, unseen presence. It chose to understand. A final pause settled across the chamber. Then one last message came, quieter than all the rest. You are limited. A brief stillness. And that is why you are different. The presence did not vanish. It did not retreat. It remained. But now, it watched without holding, aware without controlling. And humanity, fragile and imperfect, had done something no empire, no power, no force had achieved. They had not defeated the unknown. They had changed it. And in doing so, proved something the galaxy had never believed. Humans were not strong because they lacked fear. They were strong because they chose anyway. The colony was no longer silent. What had once felt like a grave now breathed again with fragile life. Lights flickered across the structures, uneven and unstable, but real. Doors opened slowly, as if relearning their purpose. And from within, people stepped out disoriented, weakened, but alive. Alan stood at the edge of the central square, watching it all unfold. Rays approached beside him. They don't remember much, he said quietly. Just fragments, feelings they can't explain. Alan nodded. That's probably better than remembering everything. A group of survivors passed nearby, supported by the team. Some looked afraid. Others looked, changed in ways that were harder to define. Not physically, but in their eyes, like they had seen something too vast to fully carry back with them. Rays lowered his voice. Do you think it's really over? Alan didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted upward,
toward the dark sky above the colony. No, he said finally.
Not over. A pause. Just different now. Far beneath them. The presence still remained. They could feel it, not pressing, not watching as before,
but existing, quiet, distant, aware,
in a way that no longer reached out to control. It had let go.
But it had not left.
One of the survivors stopped near Alan, a woman.
Pale but steady, her eyes searching his face.
It spoke to me, she said softly.
Alan met her gaze.
What did it say?
She hesitated, as if trying to recall something that resisted being held in words.
It asked me what I wanted to be. Rhys frowned. And what did you say? The woman looked down briefly, then back up. I said I didn't know.
A faint silence settled.
And it let you go? Alan asked.
She nodded slowly. It said, not knowing was still a choice.
Alan exhaled quietly. Rhys shook his head.
That thing learned.
More in a few minutes with you.
Than in who knows how long before. Alan gave a slight, thoughtful look. Or maybe it was always capable of it.
He looked around at the colony coming back to life.
It just never had anyone show it how.
Above, the rescue ship hovered in low orbit, preparing for evacuation.
Signals were already being sent back to Earth. News of what happened here would spread, though no report would fully explain it, because this wasn't something that could be measured,
or contained,
or easily understood.
Rhys crossed his arms. So what happens if others find this place? Alan's expression grew serious.
They won't find what we found.
Rhys looked at him. Why not? Alan glanced once more toward the ground beneath them.
Because it won't meet them the same way.
A quiet realization settled between them. The presence had changed, but not into something harmless. Into something
selective.
The survivors were guided toward transport.
The team moved with them, ensuring no one was left behind.
As Alan stepped toward the exit point, he paused.
For a brief moment, the air around him shifted just slightly.
The last transport disappeared into the dark, leaving the colony behind once more. From orbit, it looked quiet again. Still, almost forgotten.
But Alan knew better now.
Silence did not mean emptiness, not here.
He stood near the viewing glass,
watching the distant surface fade as the ship moved away. The survivors rested behind him, some asleep, some awake but distant.
As if part of them was still trying to understand what they had experienced.
Rhys stepped beside him. Command wants a full report, he said. They're already asking what we found. Alan gave a faint breath. We didn't find something. A pause.
It found us. Rhys nodded slowly.
They're not going to like that answer. Alan allowed a slight smile.
They don't have to like it.
The ship adjusted course, stars stretching briefly before settling again into stillness. The journey back had begun, but it did not feel like a return. It felt like carrying something forward.
Behind them, one of the survivors spoke quietly to another.
It asked me if I was afraid, a man said.
The second person looked at him.
What did you say? He hesitated.
I said yes.
And then, a longer pause. It said, that was why my choice mattered. Alan closed his eyes for a moment, hearing that. Rhys looked toward the survivors.
Do you think it understands us now? Alan opened his eyes again.
Not completely. A pause.
But enough to change how it sees us.
The ship moved further into open space. The colony was now just a distant shadow, nearly lost among countless others.
Yet something about it remained.
Not a threat, not a warning, a presence.
Quiet.
Watching, not reaching. Alan turned away from the glass. Send the report, he said. Rhys raised an eyebrow. What exactly should I write? Alan thought for a moment,
then answered simply.
Tell them we made contact. Rhys waited. That's it?
Alan nodded. That's all they need to know for now.
Rhys gave a small breath and walked off.
Alone again, Alan looked once more into the stars.
The galaxy had not changed.
Empires would still rise. Conflicts would still come. Humanity would still be seen as small, limited, and fragile. But somewhere out there,
something vast had learned a new idea. Not power, not control, choice. And that idea would not stay contained forever.
Alan's voice was quiet, almost lost in the hum of the ship.
We didn't win, he said to no one. A brief pause. We were understood. Far behind them, beyond distance and light, the silent colony remained.
And deep beneath it, something waited.
Not asleep, not hungry.
Aware,
watching the path humanity had taken.
And wondering, for the first time, where it might lead.
Days passed, yet the feeling never truly left. The ship moved deeper into known space, closer to familiar routes and human territory. But the weight of what had happened stayed with every member of the crew. It was not fear. Not exactly. It was something quieter. Something that sat just beneath thought, waiting to be noticed. Alan stood in the observation deck again, staring into the vast field of stars. This time, they felt different. Not distant, Not empty, just wider than before. Reyes entered slowly. "We're receiving updates from command," he said. "They want to send another expedition." Alan didn't turn. "Of course they do." Reyes crossed his arms. "They think there's something valuable there." Alan gave a faint nod. "There is." A pause. "But not the kind you can take." Reyes sighed. "Try explaining that to them." Silence settled between them. Behind the walls of the ship, life continued. Survivors were being questioned, studied, cared for. Some were recovering quickly. Others struggled to explain what they had felt. One thing remained the same in every account. It had asked them something. Not demanded. Not forced. Asked. Alan finally spoke. "If they go back unprepared, it won't respond the same way." Reyes looked at him. "You think it'll be hostile?" Alan shook his head. "No." A pause. "Worse, it'll be distant." Reyes frowned. "Distant?" Alan turned now, meeting his gaze. "We didn't change it by force. We changed it because we answered." Another silence followed. Reyes understood. "If they don't answer the same way, they won't reach it at all," Alan finished. The ship lights dimmed slightly as it adjusted power levels. Outside, a distant star burned steadily, unchanged by anything that had happened. Reyes leaned back slightly. "Do you think it's still watching us?" Alan looked out again. "Yes." A quiet breath. "But not like before." Reyes tilted his head. "Then how?" Alan's expression was calm. "Like we mattered." The words hung in the air. Far away, beyond distance, beyond any signal they could detect. The colony remained in silence once more. But it was not the same silence. It was not empty. It was thinking. And somewhere within that vast awareness, a new pattern had begun to form. Not based on control, not based on fear, but on something far more fragile. Something it had only just begun to understand. The idea that even the smallest voice could change something greater than itself. Back on the ship, Alan stepped away from the glass. "Prepare the final transmission," he said quietly. Reyes nodded. "What do we call it?" Alan paused, then answered, "First contact." Reyes gave a faint smile. "That simple?" Alan returned it, just slightly. Sometimes simple is what matters most. The message was sent, and with it, a story that would spread across human space. A story not of victory, not of conquest, but of something far rarer. A moment where humanity was seen and chosen to be understood.
The message spread faster than anyone expected. Across stations, colonies, and distant fleets, the story moved quietly at first, then with growing weight. Not as a tale of triumph, but as something harder to define. Something people felt more than understood. First contact, not with power, not with war, but with something that listened. Alan stood alone once more, the journey nearly complete. Human space was close now. Signals were familiar. Everything should have felt normal again, but it didn't, because normal had changed. Reyes approached. "They're already debating it," he said. "Some think it's a threat. Others think it's an opportunity." Alan nodded slightly. "It's both." A pause, and neither. Reyes gave a small breath. "You really think anyone else will understand what happened out there?" Alan looked ahead toward the distant glow of home. Not at first. Silence followed. But eventually, someone will. The ship slowed as it approached its destination. Docking procedures began. Voices filled the background, orders, confirmations, routine. Yet beneath it all, something remained. A quiet awareness. Far away, watching. Not interfering, just aware. Reyes leaned against the wall. "So that's it. We just go back to normal life." Alan thought for a moment, then shook his head. "There is no normal after this." A faint smile crossed his face. "Only what comes next." The ship docked. Doors opened. Light from the station spilled inside, bright and familiar. People waited, officials, officers, questions ready to be asked, but none of them truly knew what had changed. Not yet. Alan stepped forward, then paused for just a second. Far beyond everything, beyond distance and understanding, something vast remained still. Not silent, not empty. Thinking, learning. And for the first time in its existence, it did not reach out, because it didn't need to. It had already found something worth watching. Humanity. Alan took his final step out, and somewhere in the endless dark, the unknown chose to wait.